I held my tiny premature daughter through the incubator gloves in the Nicu. Her paper-thin skin looked translucent under the warming lights. My phone buzzed with the family group text I just sent. Emma was born at 28 weeks. We're in the Nicu. Please pray. I watched the responses flood in. My Aunt Sharon posted Hawaii sunset photos. My cousin Janet shared a restaurant selfie. My mother sent a thumbs-up emoji. No one asked how Emma was doing. No one offered to visit. As machines beeped around my fragile baby, I realized I was facing this nightmare completely alone. The first week in the NICU blurred together like a waking nightmare. I slept in an uncomfortable reclining chair beside Emma's incubator, my back aching from the awkward angles. The vinyl cushions crackled every time I shifted, and the constant beeping of monitors created a soundtrack I would hear in my dreams for months afterward. My husband Mark worked double shifts at the construction site to cover our mounting medical bills. Insurance covered 80%, but 20% of hundreds of thousands of dollars still felt impossible. He would arrive at the hospital after 10-hour days, his work clothes still dusty, and collapse into the chair across from mine while I updated him on Emma's progress. Every day I sent detailed updates to our family group chat. Emma gained 2 ounces today. The doctors are pleased. She's breathing more on her own, now less help from the ventilator. They think we can try bottle feeding next week. I photographed every small milestone, every tiny victory, hoping my family would share in these precious moments. The responses felt like ice water in my veins. Hang in there, sweetie, from my mother. Thoughts and prayers from my Uncle Bob. Generic thumbs-up emojis and heart reactions that required no thought, no emotion, no actual engagement with what we were experiencing. Meanwhile, my sister-in-law, Amanda, filled the group chat with photos from her son's soccer tournament. Tyler scored 3 goals today, so proud of my little athlete. The pictures showed a dozen family members cheering in the bleachers, coolers full of snacks, everyone gathered together in celebration. My brother Travis shared photos from a backyard barbecue party at his house. I recognized cousins, aunts, uncles, family friends, all laughing around his deck, cold drinks in hand, children playing in the background. The caption read, "Nothing better than family time." I stared at the photos, wondering why this gathering happened without any mention to me, why no one thought to bring a plate of food to the hospital, why Emma's fight for life seemed invisible to them. Other NICU parents received constant streams of visitors. The family next to us had grandparents taking shifts, bringing home cooked meals in glass containers that filled the small kitchenette with amazing smells. Cousins arrived with coffee and magazines. Church groups dropped off care packages with toiletries and gift cards for the hospital cafeteria. The family across the hall had so many visitors, they had to coordinate schedules. I watched siblings taking turns holding their premature nephew while parents caught naps in the family sleeping rooms. Flowers lined their windowsill, changing weekly as fresh bouquets replaced wilting ones. I pumped breast milk every 3 hours in a sterile room, down the hall storing tiny bottles in the NICU freezer. The pump's mechanical rhythm became meditative, but also lonely. Other mothers chatted with visiting sisters or mothers while they pumped. I sat alone scrolling through my family's social media posts about their normal lives. During Emma's 2nd week, I overheard a phone conversation that shattered something inside me. My cousin Janet was talking loudly near the elevators apparently, not realizing I could hear her from the NICU entrance. "It's just too depressing to visit," she said into her phone. "Plus, premature babies look so weird and tiny. I wouldn't know what to say. Bridgette is probably too emotional to deal with visitors anyway." I stood frozen in the doorway, invisible to Janet, as she continued. "I mean, we all sent prayers and good thoughts. What more does she expect? Some of us have our own lives to manage." The hospital social worker, a kind woman named Patricia, asked about our family support system during one of her routine check-ins. She sat across from me in the small counseling room, a box of tissues strategically placed on the table between us. "Tell me about the people helping you through this," Patricia said gently. "Family can be such an important source of strength during NICU stays." I lied smoothly, not wanting to admit the truth. "Oh, they're very supportive. Everyone's praying for Emma. They just live far away, you know. Hard for them to visit regularly." Patricia nodded, making notes in her file. "Long-distance family can be challenging. Are they able to help in other ways? Meal delivery services, grocery shopping, helping with bills." I invented more lies about family contributions and support, too embarrassed to admit that my own relatives had essentially abandoned us during the most terrifying time of our lives. That night, Mark found me crying while pumping milk at 2 in the morning. The small pump room felt like a prison cell, fluorescent lights. Humming overhead, the mechanical sucking sound of the breast pump mixing with my quiet sobs. "What's wrong?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. The same thing had been wrong for 2 weeks. "They don't care," I whispered, not trusting my voice louder than that. "Emma could die, and they would just send another emoji." Mark sat on the small stool beside me, his calloused hand gentle on my back. "Maybe they don't know how to help. Some people get uncomfortable around medical situations." But I knew better. This wasn't discomfort. This was deliberate indifference. My family viewed Emma's early arrival as an inconvenience, not a crisis. Her fight for survival was disrupting their comfortable routines, and they resented being asked to acknowledge it. The realization settled in my chest like a cold stone. When I needed them most, when my daughter needed them most, they had collectively decided we weren't worth their time or attention. 2 weeks stretched into a month, and still no family visitors walked through the NICU doors. Mark and I developed a rhythm born of necessity rather than choice. I stayed during the day shift, learning to read Emma's monitors, memorizing the names of every nurse and doctor, becoming fluent in the language of premature infant care. Mark took the night shift, catching a few hours of sleep in the reclining chair before heading to work the next morning. Emma faced complication after complication. Her underdeveloped lungs struggled with fluid retention. Feeding became a complex negotiation between tiny stomach capacity and essential nutrition. Infection scares sent her temperature spiking, triggering antibiotic treatments that made her even more lethargic. During each emergency, I sent urgent updates to the family group chat. "Emma has pneumonia. Please pray harder." Her oxygen levels dropped. They're increasing ventilator support. Possible surgery tomorrow if breathing doesn't improve. The responses arrived hours later, after the immediate danger had passed. Generic encouragement that felt copied and pasted from greeting cards. "Praying for you. She's a fighter, thinking positive thoughts." Hospital parking fees accumulated like compound interest. $15 per day, 7 days a week, 4 weeks running. Our fast food receipts created a paper trail of desperation. Drive-through coffee to stay awake, convenience store sandwiches, eaten standing up vending machine snacks, consumed during brief breaks from Emma's bedside. The families surrounding us lived completely different experiences. Home-cooked meals appeared regularly in thermal containers prepared by rotating teams of relatives. Grandmothers arrived with fresh changes of clothes for exhausted parents. Siblings offered babysitting for other children at home, ensuring parents could focus entirely on their hospitalized baby. During Emma's 4th week, my childhood friend Melissa surprised me with a visit. She brought actual restaurant coffee and homemade cookies sitting beside me, while Emma slept peacefully in her warming bed. I ran into your Aunt Sharon at the grocery store yesterday, Melissa mentioned casually while we watched Emma's steady breathing. She was buying supplies for some kind of luau-themed party. My heart stopped. A party? Yeah, she seemed really excited about it. Said the whole family was coming over for a Hawaiian night. She had a cart full of pineapples and coconut decorations. The Hawaii photos suddenly made sense. Sharon's vacation pictures weren't just tone-deaf social media posts. They were inspiration for a family party that would happen without us planned while Emma fought for her life 30 minutes away. Melissa continued, not realizing how deeply her words were cutting. She mentioned you having some drama with a premature baby, but honestly, she made it sound like you were being overly emotional about normal new baby stuff. Drama. My daughter's life-threatening condition was family drama to them. What else did she say? I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted the answer. Melissa shifted uncomfortably. She complained about you sending constant updates and guilting everyone with baby pictures. Said you were making everything about yourself and expecting the whole family to drop their lives for your situation. My situation. Emma's medical crisis was my situation, something I was inflicting on them rather than something requiring their support. That evening, I discovered something that made everything worse. While helping my mother with her phone, technical issues over FaceTime, I accidentally glimpsed a group chat notification that I wasn't part of. The preview showed my brother's name and the words Bridgette's hysteria. There was another family group chat, one that excluded me, one where they discussed my hysteria and drama and attention-seeking behavior while my daughter fought for survival. I couldn't sleep that night. Emma rested peacefully, her tiny chest rising and falling with mechanical precision. Blissfully unaware that her extended family considered her existence an inconvenience, I sat in the dark Nicu, surrounded by the soft sounds of life support machines, and realized that my family had not just abandoned us emotionally. They had actively turned against us. The next week brought Emma's most serious complication yet. Her heart murmur, previously monitored but stable, suddenly worsened. The pediatric cardiologist explained that Emma needed surgery to repair a defect that was preventing proper circulation. I called my mother directly, bypassing the group chat, begging for emotional support before the surgery. Mom, Emma needs heart surgery tomorrow morning. I'm terrified. Could you come? Or could someone from the family come? I just need someone here who loves her. The pause lasted too long. Oh, honey, that sounds scary. I'll definitely be praying. but tomorrow is Bob's retirement party, and I already promised to help with the decorations. Plus, hospitals make me nervous, you understand? I understood perfectly. A family retirement party mattered more than my daughter's heart surgery. The only response in the family group chat came from my uncle posting photos of his new fishing boat, complete with detailed specifications about the engine and sound system. Emma's surgery was successful, but I realized something during those 4 hours of waiting. I was emotionally exhausted, not from the medical crisis, but from the constant rejection of people who were supposed to love us. The surgery fear was manageable. The family abandonment was destroying me. I started questioning everything about my relationships with these people. Were they always this selfish? Had I been blind to their true nature my entire life? Or had something changed, some fundamental shift that made them capable of abandoning a sick baby? As Emma recovered from surgery, breathing more easily, her color improving each day, I began to understand that this experience was revealing truths about my family that I could never unknow. Emma finally stabilized after her heart surgery. Her breathing became more independent, requiring less ventilator support each day. The doctors spoke cautiously about progress, using words like encouraging and hopeful for the first time in weeks. I allowed myself to relax slightly, eating a real meal in the hospital cafeteria instead of grabbing vending machine snacks. The cafeteria felt almost normal at lunchtime. Other families chatted at tables, sharing updates and encouragement. Medical staff grabbed quick meals between shifts. I sat alone near the windows, picking at a turkey sandwich, while scrolling through social media posts about everyone else's ordinary Tuesday afternoon problems. My phone exploded with missed calls. The screen lit up again and again, the same contact name flashing Travis. My brother never called me, especially not repeatedly. We communicated through the family group chat or brief text messages about holidays and birthdays. 62 missed calls in less than 10 minutes. My stomach dropped as I watched the number climbing. 63, 64. Something was catastrophically wrong. A text message appeared, "Answer, this is bad." My hands shook as I called him back, my mind racing through possibilities. Had someone died? Was there an accident? Had something happened to our parents? Travis answered before the first ring finished. His voice sounded hysterical, barely controlled panic mixed with rage. "Bridgette, oh God, finally. Listen to me carefully. Dad cleaned out everything. The business accounts, Mom's inheritance, even Grandma's trust fund. Everything. It's all gone." My brain couldn't process his words. "What do you mean, gone?" "I mean stolen, embezzled. Dad has been taking money for months, and we just discovered it. The business accounts are empty. Client deposits, vendor payments, payroll accounts, all of it, and it gets worse." The turkey sandwich turned to cardboard in my mouth. "How much worse?" Travis's voice cracked. He used the family's distraction with your situation to cover his tracks. While everyone was ignoring your baby crisis, he was systematically draining every account he had access to. My situation, even in this moment, Emma's life-threatening condition, was still my situation, my crisis, my drama that had provided cover for something much darker. The construction company is facing lawsuits from unpaid contractors. Clients are demanding their deposits back. Mom's inheritance from Grandpa, the money she was saving for retirement, that's gone too. Even the trust fund Dad managed for Grandma's long-term care. I set the sandwich down, no longer able to pretend to eat. How is that possible? He had power of attorney for Grandma. Mom trusted him with her account information, and the business accounts, he was the primary signer. He's been forging signatures, creating fake invoices, redirecting electronic payments. The cafeteria sounds faded around me. Other conversations, the clattering of trays, the hum of the soda machine, everything became distant background noise. Travis, how much money are we talking about? Close to $500,000, maybe more. We're still discovering accounts he accessed. $500,000. The number felt impossible, too large to comprehend. But where is he now? What does he say about this? Travis laughed bitterly. He's gone, completely disappeared. Left a note blaming family stress from Emma's situation. Said he couldn't handle the pressure anymore and made some bad decisions. Family stress from Emma's situation. My premature daughter was being blamed for our father's premeditated theft. He timed this perfectly, Bridgette. Think about it. He encouraged everyone to keep their distance from you in the hospital. Said you needed space to focus on Emma. Meanwhile, he was accessing accounts, forging documents, moving money around, while everyone was deliberately not paying attention to anything. The realization hit me like ice water. Our family's cold treatment wasn't just emotional neglect, it was strategic distraction. Mom is hysterical. Aunt Sharon is threatening to sue everyone for her inheritance money. The relatives who were posting vacation photos and party pictures, those were funded by stolen money. Everyone spent money that didn't belong to them, while you sat alone in that hospital. My phone buzzed with notifications from the family group chat that had been silent during Emma's worst medical days. Suddenly, everyone was demanding immediate responses, urgent family meetings, emergency solutions. They want you to come home immediately to help fix this, Travis continued. The same people who couldn't spare 2 hours to visit your baby are now demanding you drop everything and save them from Dad's theft. I sat in that hospital cafeteria processing the impossible information. My daughter had nearly died, while my father used her medical crisis as cover to steal from his entire family. The relatives who ignored us were now demanding my help to recover money they had unknowingly spent, while rejecting my desperate pleas for basic emotional support. Bridgette, are you still there? I'm here. My voice sounded hollow, distant, like it was coming from someone else. What do you want me to tell them? Everyone's panicking, demanding answers, wanting you to come to an emergency family meeting tonight. I looked up toward the Nicu where Emma continued her slow recovery, completely innocent of the chaos swirling around her tiny existence. She had survived pneumonia, heart surgery, and countless medical complications. Now I was learning that her grandfather had used her suffering as an opportunity to destroy their entire family's financial security. Tell them I'll be there, I said quietly. But first I need to understand exactly what Dad did and how he did it. Because something in my gut told me this story was far from over. I returned to the Nicu with my mind reeling from Travis's revelations. Emma slept peacefully in her warming bed, her tiny fingers curled around a soft toy that one of her nurses had brought from home. The monitors showed steady, vital signs, her breathing regular and strong. for the first time in weeks. She looked so innocent, so completely unaware that her grandfather had used her medical crisis as cover for devastating theft. A nurse approached me as I settled into the familiar chair beside Emma's bed. "Mrs. Anderson, the social worker needs to speak with you about some insurance paperwork discrepancies. She's in her office when you have a moment." Insurance paperwork discrepancies. After Travis's call, those words sent alarm bells through my head. Patricia, the social worker who had asked about our family support system, welcomed me into her small office with a concerned expression. She had a manila folder open on her desk papers scattered across the surface. "Bridgette, I need to ask you about some unusual activity with Emma's insurance claims. There have been several attempts to redirect payment authorizations to external accounts." My blood turned cold. "What kind of attempts?" Patricia showed me forms that I had never seen before. Someone submitted requests to change the primary account for insurance reimbursements. They also tried to establish a secondary medical fund account for Emma's ongoing care, but the signature on these forms doesn't match the signature cards we have on file for you or Mark. I studied the signature on the papers. It resembled my father's handwriting, the same hurried scrawl I had seen on birthday cards and Christmas checks my entire life. When were these submitted? During Emma's second week here, right around the time she had pneumonia complications. Someone called the hospital billing department claiming to be your husband, asking detailed questions about insurance coverage limits and payment schedules. My father had researched my insurance policies while Emma fought for her life. He had attempted to steal money that was meant to cover my daughter's medical expenses. Patricia continued, "We also have security footage of a man visiting the billing department who claimed to be Emma's grandfather. He asked for copies of all insurance paperwork, saying the family needed documentation for financial planning purposes." "Can I see that footage?" Patricia pulled up the security video on her computer. There was my father, clear as day, walking through the hospital corridors. But instead of heading to the Nicu to meet his granddaughter, he went directly to the billing office. He spent 40 minutes asking detailed questions about insurance processes, payment timelines, and account access procedures. He never came to see Emma. Never asked about her condition, her progress, her needs. He visited the hospital once during her month-long stay, and he used that visit to investigate financial opportunities. I thought about his note blaming family stress from Emma's situation for his theft. The timing wasn't coincidental. He had planned this systematically. After leaving Patricia's office, I called our family banker, someone who had handled our accounts for years. What I learned made my stomach turn. My father had been forging signatures on business documents for months before Emma was even born. He had used family members' social security numbers to establish fake business loan accounts. He had systematically researched everyone's financial information, gathering account numbers, learning about inheritances and trust funds. But the most chilling discovery came when I contacted our family attorney. Dad had attempted to establish legal guardianship over Emma's medical decisions, claiming that Mark and I were too emotionally unstable to make proper financial choices for her care. The paperwork had been submitted during Emma's heart surgery, while I was in the surgical waiting room terrified for my daughter's life. He had tried to gain legal control over Emma's medical fund and insurance payouts. The evidence painted a horrifying picture. Everyone's credit scores had been damaged by loans taken in their names. Bank accounts had been systematically drained over months. Aunt Sharon's Hawaii vacation had been paid for with stolen funds from my mother's account. Cousin Janet's restaurant meals and shopping sprees had been funded by drained business payroll accounts. Even more disturbing, I discovered that my father had been coordinating the family's cold response to Emma's crisis. Text message records showed him encouraging relatives to keep their distance and not get emotionally involved in what he called my medical drama. He had convinced everyone that visiting the hospital would make them financially liable for Emma's care somehow. He told them that my desperate updates were attempts to guilt them into paying medical bills. He systematically poisoned the family against us while using their distraction to steal from them. The social media posts that had hurt me so deeply, the vacation photos and party pictures, those weren't just thoughtless timing. They were carefully orchestrated alibis. My father had encouraged family members to post evidence of their whereabouts and activities, creating digital proof that they were living normal lives while he committed financial crimes in the background. Aunt Sharon's Hawaii vacation photos weren't tone-deaf responses to Emma's medical crisis. They were cover for the fact that she was unknowingly spending her own stolen inheritance money, manipulated into taking a vacation that would provide her with a perfect alibi for the timeline of her account being drained. The family barbecue at Travis's house, the retirement party, the soccer tournament celebrations. All of these gatherings had been suggested and encouraged by our father. He wanted everyone visible and distracted while he moved money around electronically. I sat in the Nicu that night watching Emma sleep and realized the scope of my father's manipulation. He hadn't just stolen money. He had orchestrated our family's emotional abandonment of a sick baby to provide cover for systematic financial theft. But what made me angriest was the realization that he had tried to steal from Emma herself. My tiny daughter fighting for survival in an incubator had been viewed by her own grandfather as a financial opportunity rather than a human being worthy of love and protection. The evidence was overwhelming. Bank records forged to document security footage, email trails, phone records. I had everything needed to prove that this wasn't desperate gambling debts or sudden bad decisions. This was premeditated, systematic family destruction that had been planned for months. And I was going to make sure everyone knew exactly what had happened. The next morning, I contacted our family attorney, a man who had handled legal matters for our family for over 20 years. David Patterson had drawn up wills-handled property transfers and managed various family business issues. If anyone could help me understand the legal implications of my father's theft, it would be him. David's office felt like a sanctuary of calm professionalism. He listened carefully as I explained everything Travis had discovered, everything I had learned from the hospital's financial counselor, and everything the bank had revealed about forged documents and fake accounts. Bridgette, this is far more serious than simple embezzlement, David said, reviewing the papers I had brought. Your father has committed wire fraud, identity theft, insurance fraud, and what appears to be elder financial abuse regarding your grandmother's trust fund. He showed me how to trace the paper trail of asset transfers. My father had been moving property titles to shell companies weeks before Emma was born. The family construction business had been systematically stripped of assets and transferred to fake corporations that he controlled. Look at these dates. David pointed to transfer documents. These property moves happened 3 weeks before Emma was born premature. Your father was already implementing his theft plan before there was any medical crisis to blame it on. The gambling debts that my father claimed in his disappearance note were fabricated. David's investigation revealed that Dad had been meeting with financial advisors about offshore account options, not loan sharks. The story about dangerous people demanding money was complete fiction. He created a fake narrative about gambling problems to explain the missing money, David explained. But the real plan was permanent asset theft with no intention of repaying anything. A private investigator friend of Mark's helped us trace hidden accounts and asset movements. What we discovered was chilling in its complexity and calculation. My father had created an intricate web of shell companies and fake business entities. He had established offshore accounts in multiple countries. He had researched legal loopholes and statute of limitations timelines. This wasn't desperate theft born of crisis. This was sophisticated financial planning that had been in development for over a year. The most disturbing discovery came when we accessed his computer and phone records. He had been researching my pregnancy complications, learning about premature birth statistics, and investigating insurance policies related to high-risk pregnancies. He had planned to use my baby's medical crisis as cover for theft before Emma was even born. Text message records revealed his manipulation strategy in detail. He had contacted each family member individually, warning them about my emotional instability and tendency to dramatize medical situations. He convinced them that visiting the hospital would encourage my attention-seeking behavior. He told my mother that bringing flowers or food would enable my dependence on family support. He warned Travis that getting too emotionally involved would make him financially responsible for medical bills. He convinced Aunt Sharon that my updates were guilt trips designed to extract money from relatives. Every family member had been systematically manipulated into believing that supporting me would somehow harm me or cost them money. They thought they were protecting themselves and helping me by staying away. The social media coordination was even more calculated. My father had suggested specific activities and encouraged relatives to document them online. The Hawaii vacation, the backyard barbecue, the retirement party, the soccer tournament, all of these events had been proposed by him as ways to maintain normal family activities during my medical drama. He wanted digital evidence that everyone was living normal lives, while he electronically transferred money from their accounts. The cheerful vacation photos and party pictures weren't just painful timing, they were deliberate alibis. Hospital security provided additional evidence. Visitor logs showed that my father had indeed visited the hospital once during Emma's stay, but he had spent the entire visit in the billing and financial planning departments. He never went to the Nicu. He never asked to see Emma. He never inquired about her condition. Security cameras captured him asking detailed questions about insurance claim processing payment timelines and account verification procedures. He collected copies of all financial paperwork related to Emma's care, claiming he needed them for family financial planning purposes. During that same visit, he attempted to establish himself as an authorized contact for Emma's financial matters. He told hospital staff that Mark and I were too emotionally overwhelmed to handle complex insurance issues, and that he wanted to help manage the financial stress for us. The evidence package grew larger each day. Forged signatures, fake invoices, redirected electronic payments, manipulated family members, fabricated gambling debts, and systematic asset theft that had been planned for months before it was executed. But the most damning evidence came from his own digital footprint. Email searches showed him researching legal precedents for financial guardianship claims. He had consulted with bankruptcy attorneys about protecting assets from medical debt liability. He had investigated insurance fraud detection timelines and statutes of limitations for financial crimes. My father hadn't just stolen money from his family. He had researched exactly how to do it, how long he could get away with it, and how to frame the theft as someone else's fault. Emma's medical crisis wasn't the cause of his crimes. It was the perfect cover story he had been waiting for. The evidence was overwhelming, but I realized I had been approaching this wrong. Instead of just gathering proof for law enforcement, I needed to gather proof that would force my family to confront the truth about their own manipulation and abandonment. They needed to understand that their cold treatment of Emma wasn't their fault, but it also wasn't excusable. They had been manipulated, but they had also chosen to believe manipulation that allowed them to avoid difficult emotional support. I began preparing for a family meeting where I would present everything, not just to expose my father's crimes, but to help everyone understand how they had been used, how their own selfish instincts had been exploited, and how Emma had suffered because of their willingness to be manipulated away from love and towards selfishness. The truth was going to set everyone free, but first it was going to force them to face exactly who they had chosen to become. Emma was finally stable enough that I could leave the hospital for a few hours. Her breathing had strengthened, her heart surgery recovery was progressing beautifully, and the doctors were cautiously optimistic about her development. For the first time in 6 weeks, I felt safe leaving her bedside for more than a quick meal break. I called a family meeting at my mother's house, using the same manipulative language my father had perfected. "I need help with Dad's situation," I told each relative. "We have to work together to fix this mess and protect the family." Everyone attended. They arrived expecting to coordinate damage control to blame me for creating the family stress that had driven Dad to theft and to demand that I contribute financially to family recovery efforts. Aunt Sharon arrived first, her face tight with anger. She had been forced to cut her Hawaii vacation short when the credit card funding it was suddenly canceled. "This is a disaster, Bridgette. Your medical drama stressed Dad out so much that he made terrible decisions. You need to figure out how to help pay back what he took." My brother Travis looked exhausted and defeated. The construction company was facing bankruptcy. Vendors were demanding payments for supplies they would never receive money for, and clients were threatening lawsuits over unfinished projects. Cousin Janet arrived defensive and accusatory. Her shopping sprees and restaurant meals had been funded by drained payroll accounts, and now she was facing credit card debt she couldn't afford. "I don't understand why Dad would steal money just because you had a premature baby. Babies are born early all the time." My mother sat tearfully on her sofa, surrounded by financial documents and legal papers. Her entire retirement savings had vanished. "I trusted your father with everything," she whispered. 40 years of marriage, and he destroyed our whole family because he couldn't handle hospital stress. Uncle Bob arrived, demanding answers and solutions. His retirement party had been funded by stolen business money, and now he was facing questions from clients about whether he had been involved in the financial irregularities. They spent 30 minutes venting their prepared accusations and blame. Everything was my fault for creating family stress. Everything was Emma's fault for being born premature. Everything was the hospital's fault for causing financial pressure. Everything was anyone's fault except the person who had actually committed the crimes. I let them exhaust their rehearsed anger and fear. I listened to them blame a 6-week-old baby for a sophisticated financial crime that had been planned for over a year. I watched them struggle to avoid any responsibility for their own choices and behaviors. Then I quietly opened my laptop and began presenting evidence chronologically. First, I showed bank transfers that predated Emma's birth by months, property title changes that happened before I even went into labor, shell company formations that were established while I was still pregnant and healthy. "Dad started stealing from all of you before Emma existed," I said calmly. "This has nothing to do with hospital stress or premature birth complications." Next, I displayed forged signatures, fake invoices, and fraudulent loan applications. Documents that proved systematic planning and premeditation. "He researched your financial information for months. He collected your social security numbers, learned your account passwords, and studied your spending habits. This wasn't desperate decision-making. This was careful preparation." Then I played the recording of my father trying to access Emma's medical fund and insurance payments. His voice clear and calculating, trying to redirect money meant for a sick baby's medical care. He tried to steal from Emma while she was on life support, his own granddaughter fighting for survival, and he saw her as a financial opportunity. I showed security footage of his hospital visit during Emma's heart surgery. Instead of going to the Nicu to see his granddaughter, he spent the entire visit in billing and financial departments, gathering information about insurance processes and payment systems. He visited the hospital once during Emma's entire stay. He never saw her, never asked about her condition, never offered support. He came to research how to steal her medical insurance money. The room fell silent as the evidence accumulated. Aunt Sharon's Hawaii vacation photos displayed alongside bank records showing the stolen inheritance money that funded her trip. Travis's barbecue party cross-referenced with drained business accounts that paid for the food and drinks. Your vacation, your parties, your normal life activities were all funded by stolen money, I continued. Dad encouraged these events and expenses to provide alibis while he moved money electronically. But the most devastating evidence came from the text message records. Screenshots of my father's individual conversations with each family member, systematically poisoning them against Emma and me. Messages to my mother. "Don't visit the hospital. Bridgette is too emotional right now. Give her space to focus on the baby." Messages to Travis. "Stay away from the medical drama. Bridgette might try to guilt you into paying bills." Messages to Aunt Sharon. Those constant baby updates are attention-seeking behavior. Don't encourage her by responding. Messages to cousin Janet. Keep living your normal life. Don't let Bridgette's crisis become your crisis. Each family member read their own manipulation history. They saw exactly how my father had convinced them that abandoning a sick baby was actually the caring thing to do. He told each of you that supporting Emma would somehow harm us, I said. He made you believe that love and visiting and basic human compassion would be enabling my emotional instability. The evidence showed coordination dates. My father had suggested the Hawaii vacation timing. He had proposed the barbecue party during Emma's pneumonia week. He had recommended the retirement celebration during her heart surgery. Every family gathering, every social media post, every activity that excluded us was planned by him. You weren't being thoughtless, you were being manipulated. Aunt Sharon stared at her phone, seeing her own text history with my father. He told me that visiting the hospital would encourage your dependence on family support. He said the best thing I could do was maintain my own life and give you space. Travis discovered that his business credit cards had been maxed out. Without his knowledge, funding expenses he had never authorized. He used my business to fund everyone else's activities while telling us you were being dramatic about normal baby stuff. Cousin Janet learned that her identity had been used for fake loan applications, generating money that funded family events she had attended. I ate food and drank drinks that were bought with stolen money from my own credit. My mother saw evidence that my father had planned to divorce her after stealing everything, leaving her penniless and alone, while he disappeared with offshore accounts full of family money. He wasn't stressed by Emma's medical crisis, I said quietly. He was excited by the perfect cover story. A sick baby gave him everything he needed to manipulate all of you away from paying attention to financial irregularities. The room sat in stunned silence as the truth settled over them. They had been used, manipulated, and stolen from while being convinced that they were protecting themselves from my emotional manipulation. But I wasn't finished. I contacted the FBI Financial Crimes Division last week, I continued. Asset recovery proceedings have already begun. All offshore accounts have been frozen. Dad was arrested this morning at the airport with a fake passport. The evidence overwhelmed them completely. Bank transfers, forged documents, security footage, email trails, phone records, expert analysis, federal investigation results. Everything they thought they knew about the past 2 months was completely wrong. My father hadn't disappeared in shame over gambling debts. He had been planning permanent theft and escape, using Emma's medical crisis as the perfect distraction technique. Every family gathering, every social media post, every normal activity you participated in was part of his alibi strategy, I concluded. While you lived your lives and ignored a sick baby, he systematically stole from all of you and tried to steal from her too. The silence stretched for long minutes. Everyone processed the evidence, the manipulation, the scope of the deception they had fallen for. Finally, my mother spoke first. Bridgette, we were horrible to you. Even if we were being manipulated, we chose to believe manipulation that let us avoid difficult emotions and responsibilities. We abandoned Emma when she needed family most, Travis added. Dad gave us excuses, but we wanted those excuses. It was easier than dealing with scary medical situations. Aunt Sharon started crying. I spent your inheritance money on vacation while your baby fought for her life. Even if I didn't know it was stolen money, I knew I was choosing vacation over supporting you. The confrontation had revealed the truth about my father's crimes, but it had also forced everyone to confront their own choices, their own selfishness, their own willingness to abandon love when it became inconvenient. Justice was finally beginning, both legal and emotional. 6 months later, I sat in Emma's nursery at home, watching my healthy daughter play with colorful toys on her activity mat. She had reached every developmental milestone, her heart was completely healed, and her pediatrician was amazed by her progress. The tiny, fragile baby who had fought for survival in the Nicu had become a strong, curious infant with bright eyes and an infectious smile. My father was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison for wire fraud, identity theft, insurance fraud, and elder financial abuse. The asset recovery process had been more successful than anyone expected. All stolen money was returned with interest, including funds from his offshore accounts that investigators discovered using international financial crime cooperation protocols. Emma's medical bills were completely covered by recovered funds and proper insurance processing. The hospital's financial counselor had worked with federal investigators to ensure that every attempted theft was documented and reversed. Emma even had a substantial college fund established from the interest earned on recovered money during the legal proceedings. The family construction business was rebuilt under Travis's leadership with honest accounting practices and transparent financial management. He had learned valuable lessons about oversight and verification that made the company stronger than it had been before the theft. Our family relationships were transformed through shared trauma and accountability. Aunt Sharon had become Emma's devoted caretaker during my return to part-time work. She brought homemade meals twice a week and spent hours reading to Emma, making up for all the time she had missed during those crucial early months. I was selfish and scared, Sharon admitted during one of her visits. Your father gave me permission to be selfish, and I took it instead of doing what I knew was right. Cousin Janet organized weekly family dinners, ensuring that everyone gathered regularly with genuine communication and emotional honesty. She had enrolled in cooking classes and took pride in preparing meals that brought the family together. I kept living my normal life while you lived a nightmare, Janet said. I chose convenience over compassion, and I'll regret that forever. My mother moved to an apartment closer to our house so she could help with Emma's care. Our relationship had been rebuilt on complete honesty about emotions, expectations, and family responsibilities. I failed you when you needed me most, Mom said. I let fear and manipulation override my maternal instincts. Emma deserved a grandmother who fought for her, and I wasn't that person. Uncle Bob contributed generously to Emma's college fund and had taken over much of the family's financial oversight to ensure transparency in all future money management. His retirement party had been refunded with recovered stolen money, but he chose to donate that money to the Nicu that had cared for Emma. That hospital saved Emma's life while we failed her, he said. The least I can do is support other families facing the same crisis we should have helped you through. The family group chat had been replaced with genuine communication. focused on positive support and emotional honesty. Instead of superficial social media posts, we shared real struggles, actual needs, and meaningful celebrations. Emma's first birthday party was celebrated with the entire extended family present, everyone grateful for her survival and for the second chance we had all been given to love each other properly. The party wasn't about perfect decorations or impressive social media posts. It was about acknowledging how close we had come to losing everything that mattered. I returned to my job as a graphic designer on a part-time schedule, supported by a family network that actually functioned as a family should. Aunt Sharon watched Emma while I worked. Mom helped with grocery shopping and household tasks. Travis and Janet rotated dinner hosting duties to ensure no one felt overwhelmed by family responsibilities. My marriage with Mark had grown stronger through the crisis. We had learned to communicate about fear, stress, and exhaustion without judgment. We had discovered that we could survive anything together when we faced it honestly. The Nicu staff nominated our family for an advocacy award after the insurance fraud investigation led to improved financial protection policies for other families facing medical crises. Emma's story helped change hospital procedures to prevent future theft attempts targeting vulnerable families. I often reflected on the strength I never knew I possessed. During those terrifying weeks when Emma fought for survival, while the people who should have supported us were being manipulated into abandonment, I had found reserves of determination and courage that surprised me. The experience taught me that sometimes apparent abandonment reveals hidden betrayal, but truth and courage can transform tragedy into triumph. My father's crimes had been devastating, but they had also forced our family to confront selfishness, fear, and manipulation that had probably existed for years. Emma's medical crisis had been the catalyst that revealed everyone's true character and capacity for growth. The people who loved her enough to change became better versions of themselves. The person who tried to use her suffering for personal gain faced justice and consequences. Most importantly, I learned that protecting someone you love sometimes requires fighting battles on multiple fronts simultaneously. While I fought for Emma's medical survival, I also had to fight for justice, truth, and the transformation of toxic family dynamics into healthy relationships. Emma's nursery walls were decorated with photos from her NICU journey, celebrating each milestone and victory. But they were also decorated with pictures of family gatherings, where everyone was actually present emotionally and physically supporting each other through both crises and celebrations. Looking at my daughter playing peacefully surrounded by people who genuinely loved and protected her, I realized that sometimes the worst experiences reveal the best possibilities for change and growth. As I tucked Emma into her crib that night, I whispered a promise to her: "You will never doubt that you are loved, supported, and protected by your family. What happened during your first months of life will never happen again." Have you ever discovered that a family crisis revealed hidden betrayal or manipulation that had been affecting your relationships for much longer than you realized? How did you find the strength to confront the truth and rebuild trust with the people who mattered most? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. Please like this video if Emma's journey inspired you. Subscribe for more stories about overcoming family challenges. and share this with anyone who might need encouragement during their own difficult family situations. Thank you for being part of Emma's story and for believing that truth, courage, and love can transform even the most heartbreaking circumstances into new beginnings. Remember that you are stronger than you know, and your family's capacity for growth and change might surprise you when faced with the choice between love and selfishness.